So you can experience the world, but you know it's an illusory world. You know how it works. You know that your brain is decoding like a Wi-Fi reality into what we experience as a physical world, which clearly isn't from quantum physics alone. But you don't get attached to it.
Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, it's John Nolan here. Thank you so much for joining us again for another inspired conversation. Our guest today, you know him, you know his books, you know his movies, you know his tours. He's been speaking about the world's affairs for 35 plus years. But what most of you and most of the public doesn't know is that he is now virtually banned from almost every country in the world. It's a crazy story. And the new movie, Persona non grata, created by Christianne Van Wijk, tells this entire story. So please welcome with me for an almost unbelievable conversation, David Icke and Christianne Van Wijk. Thank you so much for joining us. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I want to start by saying Christine and I watched a movie. Christianne, it's a brilliant movie, but it's sad that it had to be made. You know, it's sad that we have to have this conversation. Maybe we can jump in and watch the trailer together.
Yes, okay.
Please.
Is that a good idea?
Nederland weigert de Britse complotdenker David Icke.
Ja, hij zou eigenlijk dit weekend komen spreken op het Museumplein in Amsterdam.
Gisteren kregen we te horen dat hun belangrijkste gast, complotdenker David Icke, het land niet in mag.
Nederland heeft eerder in het verleden haatpredikers geweerd. En ik zie Icke als een haatprediker.
Haatprediker, salafistische haatprediker, moeten we verhinderen dat ze naar Nederland komen.
Als hier wordt verwezen naar het verbod richting de jodenhater die ons land binnen wilde komen.
Erg jammer dat zo'n man zo'n platform krijgt op een plek als Amsterdam, überhaupt.
I'm Jeroen Pols.
My name is Willem Engel.
My name is Mordecai Crispijn.
Nobody needs to know what the game is and how it's played more than Jewish people, because they're being played as much as, if not more, than most.
What governments around the world are doing is misusing the legacy of the Jewish people as a weapon and a shield.
I don't care if you're Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Hindu. I don't care if you're black or brown or white or sky blue bloody pink. Just don't impose your beliefs on other people and you'll hear nothing from me.
Deze zaak komt ook voort uit de eigen keuze van meneer Icke om een aanjager van een, wat de minister betreft, verzonnen verhaal over een kwaadaardige elite die de mensen onderdrukt. Ja, hij kiest ervoor om dat gedachtegoed over de hele wereld te willen verspreiden.
Het moet niet zo zijn dat onze staatssecretaris de reikwijdte van de vrijheid van meningsuiting gaat bepalen.
De kunst om tegelijkertijd twee tegenstrijdige overtuigingen te accepteren of te geloven, zelfs als deze elkaar uitsluiten, zonder enige cognitieve dissonantie te ervaren. Dat noemde George Orwell in zijn roman 1984 Doublethink.
Wij hebben geen toestemming nodig om te spreken. Blijf je uitspreken.
So the idea to go to England was actually born because I was looking for a way to actually show that we cannot be stopped.
And I'm eternally grateful that you make the effort to come from all the different places that you came from.
Believe what you like, you are what you are. We're all an expression of the same consciousness in the end anyway.
Real freedom is control of your own perceptions and not letting someone else tell you what to believe.
David, it's been over 2 years, 2.5 years, I think, since you've been banned from the entirety, almost the entirety of Europe. You can't go to Australia. You can't come to the United States. You've never been charged with a crime. You've never been convicted of a crime. And those who have bothered to read one book or watch one show with you know that you are a champion for unity, for peace, for human consciousness on a human level. How is that for you to be so misrepresented and so misjudged?
I've got used to it, mate, because I've been misrepresented since 1990, endlessly and constantly. And you just get used to it. And all you can do is keep speaking your truth. And those who hear it will hear it, and those that won't will misrepresent you. And you make a good point there, because if people bothered to read my books, just one, they would see that their view of me is completely misguided. But of course, the people behind this ban in Europe are not interested in reality. They're not interested in the truth. They're not interested in who I really am. They're interested in banning me. And, I've pondered on this, and I've just been talking on Zoom with my lawyers who've been fighting this case. And they are as confused as I am, I guess, on why the Dutch government would take this stand, which is increased my profile in the Netherlands, a demonization as it is, but has also made them look silly. And I think this film that Christianne has made will make them look utterly insane, because I was invited to speak at a peace rally in Amsterdam in 2022 for 20 minutes. And I was going through the Channel Tunnel and speaking and coming back. And that would have been the end of it. But for agreeing to do that, I'm now banned from nearly 30 countries in Europe, Australia before that. And it makes no sense that they would go to these lengths to stop me doing that. But of course, what they have done is stop me not only going to the Netherlands, but stop me going to virtually the entirety of Europe. And I don't know, there must be some reason, unless they are completely stupid, which I grant you is an option. Why are they so desperate to stop me walking onto mainland Europe? It's bizarre, the whole thing.
I have a theory.
My next question would have been addressed to you, Christianne, but please go ahead. What is your theory?
So you've got people that are incredible researchers, and they've done years and years of research in what's going on in the world and, the hidden agenda. And these people often don't look at the metaphysical side of things, or the spiritual side of things, or the side of consciousness. But then you also have these amazing spiritual teachers that really you can sit with them in a room, and they can talk about all these amazing spiritual concepts. But I only know one person that actually brings the two together. And I think that's David, obviously, but I think that's what they're so afraid of, because they understand that the implications of what he says are not just on the projection of this world, but are also on what is causing this projection to exist.
I agree. And I would say that one of the biggest things probably is that his message has been, and David, I don't mean to talk about you as if you weren't there, but your message has been, it's not this party. It's not this party. It's not that party. It's not another person you vote for or someone else you give your power to. It's always been you, and you've been, for as long as I can remember, pointing people back to it. Christianne, I think what the movie has brilliantly done is told the story, of course, this insane story of keeping someone from going to speak at a peace rally, telling that story, but also telling the misconceptions and telling and showing, at the most important points of David's philosophy, if you will, Why did you feel now was the right time for this movie? And what do you hope
Well,
it will
the right
do in the
time
world?
was really because we were excited about the 2 years coming to an end, and already planning possible talks. Jamie was already planning possible talks in Europe. And then we got this really unexpected news of, no, they've decided to extend it for another 2 years, possibly even indefinitely, because he hasn't changed his thoughts. Now, when I heard that, I thought, okay, flabbergasted doesn't cover it at all. And over the years, I had been accumulating video material, and I had been filming David as well. And I had so much material, I thought, no, this is definitely the moment to create a film out of it. Now, I have an incredibly strong sense of justice that really drives me in my life. So I thought, oh, I can really channel that frustration into this film. And I've really enjoyed making it, because not only are we showing a record of what's happened over the years, but I also saw it as a great opportunity for people that are watching it to go, hey, what is he actually saying? You know, when he's accused of anti-Semitism, what is he actually saying? You know, obviously he isn't an anti-Semite, but we go into detail in that. But we also go into detail about the whole reptilian concept that everyone is always laughing about and that he's been ridiculed about for so many years. So it's an opportunity to both show the records of what's happened, but also what is he actually really saying. So I am hoping, of course, that that we're going to get swathes of people watching this. And, you know, given that we are quite shadow banned in many ways, that we're kind of depending, I guess, on word of mouth of people that are going to watch it. And then they're going to say, oh, wow, you've got to watch it. And then it will do it by itself. Because if we have to rely on lots of exposure, then I don't think we're going to get that.
You know, David, I've before this interview today, I did another scan of sort of the platforms of the news, the mainstream news and so-called alternative news. And what is noticeable that the mainstream did cover your ban, of course, with the typical buzzwords and misrepresentations. However, the alternative media, except for a few notable exceptions, didn't cover it at all. Does it shock you because of the implications? Because, you know, whether people agree with you or not is not the point. It's a voice has been silenced and a human being has been banned from entering almost the entirety of Europe for thinking the wrong way. And the alternative media does not make a big fuzz about it. What does that say?
Well, it says that what I'm saying is in many, many ways different to what they're saying. And that what I stand for, which is justice and fairness for all, irrespective of their belief system, irrespective of their income bracket, irrespective of any of these labels, fairness and justice for all, and freedom for all, freedom to express themselves, freedom of movement, etc. And what I've been highlighting now for must be 2 years is the way the alternative media has been hijacked since COVID, particularly by people who've come out of the mainstream and have been promoted by full-blown algorithmic support and financial support. And they've taken it over. They've taken over that central spotlight of the alternative media. And what they've done is regressed it. You know, large numbers of people in the alternative that I remember realize that we live in one-party states. They realize that it doesn't matter who you vote for, the government still gets in. The wings on the same bird and all that that we used to talk about. But what they've done is regressed it into the left-right puppet show. So now they've created a big divide and rule by playing off the left against the right. And what I'm doing is saying they're both expressions of the same agenda. They just get there in a different way. And so what happens is that, and this is one of the things that I've noticed with my head shaking, is that the woke left, as they call it, and the MAGA right, which is the MAGA right is now the hijacked alternative media, which is not alternative at all, really. They actually are mirrors of each other. The woke wants to impose its will on the population, and the MAGA want to impose its will on the population. And they fight among each other, but basically the same direction of travel goes on. And what this whole ban has done is highlight those people that don't just talk about freedom and fairness and justice, but actually mean it. And they're the ones that have seen the significance of someone being banned from almost the entirety of Europe. It's unprecedented. And not only that, as Christiane has said, the government has, lawyers have pointed out that unless I change my views, the ban will basically be indefinite. And the extension of the ban by 2 years, just a few months ago, is confirmation of that, because the reason they extended it was because I hadn't changed my views. So you're looking at extraordinary extremes of censorship and the demolition of even the most basic freedoms. But you see, I don't support the MAGA, and I don't support the woke. I don't support Trump, and I don't support Harris. I didn't support Biden. I don't support Musk. And as a result, I am outside of their bubble. I'm outside of their narrative. And thus they really don't give a damn what happens to me, because I'm not one of them. And I think that's the basis of it. And also, of course, I'm calling them out. I'm saying, you know, you have regressed the perceptions of the alternative media back to the fault lines that I thought we passed a long time ago. And what you're doing is just getting to the same end, not least human fusion with AI, by a different route and with different rhetoric to the direction the wokers were going. You're actually not different at all. You're the same. And of course, they don't like it. But there you go. I've got children. I've got grandchildren. Everyone else who has children and grandchildren. And I don't want to see those kids. And indeed, you know, it's so close now, people in vast numbers already that are adults. I don't want to see them controlled in an AI hive mind dystopia and a society controlled by AI, the like of which we have never seen in known human history. It's still clear that we talk about AI and we talk about, oh, this AI, or could this happen with AI? We still haven't grasped the stunning level of dystopian society that AI is designed to run, control, and impose. And therefore, I'm not going to mess about when I call it out, because we don't have the time to mess about. We don't have the time to coax and go through the niceties, because we are looking this in the eye. we're looking this in the eye in the next few years up to 2030 and afterwards. And so I call them out vehemently because it's urgent, and they don't like it. So they don't care what I do and what happens to me.
And then they call, you must have seen that on social media, calling him, oh, you're just being negative nowadays. But if you're a prolific researcher, the caliber of David, you're basically researching 24/7, you come to certain conclusions, and you just share those conclusions of what you get. Now, if that's negative, then that's very unfortunate for the world, but that's the truth. So, I mean, it's either you do that or you go along with a flow of which you know where it's going to end.
I kind of look at it as, I call it the David Icke phenomenon. And here's kind of how it works is somebody's driving down a road, and here's David Icke on the side of the road with a sign, flags him down and says, hey, mate, if you go down this road, it's going to be really bad. There's a big cliff there. And they go, oh, that can't be true. This is the major highway. This can't be true. So they keep on driving, at the last minute they brake and they go, oh shit, the guy was right. There's a huge cliff here, So they go back and say, okay, you were right. There's a cliff. Where else should I go? And David says, well, you could take this road, but it's still going to lead you to the cliff. Truth is, you might have to forge your own path. And people go, I don't want to do that. Just tell me which road to take. And so they drive down another road, and the same thing happens over. What they see is, in hindsight, they see the guy was right, but they're never willing to say, oh, what is he saying about the future? What he's saying about the future. They call it crazy. They call it impossible every single time. They say, okay, David was right about this. He was right about the vaccines. He was right about the pandemics. He was right about that before it happened. But what he's saying now he's just gone off the deep end. That can't be true. And that's the classic. For me, that's the David Icke phenomenon. It's incredibly frustrating for me. Because I say, if he got it right the 9 times before, maybe, just maybe, you listen for once. David, isn't that freaking frustrating?
That's very perceptive, what you've just described.
I really like that analogy.
Because I've experienced this, decade after decade, where, you see, when you work on the basis of whatever you think you know, there's always more to know, you're constantly seeking out another cutting edge. So by the time what you said before has come to light, and people say, oh, he was right about that, you're already somewhere else, because you are pursuing this awareness that whatever you know, there's always more to know. So my question every day is, so what don't I know? What more is there to know? And what you're doing is you are basically, if you like, ahead of the game, or in a place in the game where people are not yet kind of aware of, and so you're always to them a bit far out, and then you wait and you then see it come to pass, and people say, oh, he was right about that then. But by then you're somewhere else. You're deeper in the rabbit hole, and that's too far again. And it's like, no, it's too far this time. And so but you get used to it. And I would rather experience that than what has happened to the mainstream of the alternative media, which is you get to a certain point and you think, I've got it. This is what the conspiracy is. It's this. No, that's just an expression of it. It's much bigger than that. But once you think you've got it, you're just confirming you haven't. But if you reach a point, what I call here and no further, which is what the mainstream alternative media have done, and you're holding the line in the realm that people are aware of, and in the realm of things that people know about, like Democrats and Republicans and all this stuff, then people tend to focus around that, and think that anyone who's gone beyond it is far out, and that's what I experienced. I mean, there was a thing happened maybe a couple of weeks ago now, with a guy called Ian Carroll, who's come out of nowhere, and the algorithms bloody love him. And he was on the Rogan show, which I've never been on, and my name came up, and I was dismissed as, oh, he says it's all the reptiles. And it's like, have you any idea the range of subjects and internet-connected subjects that I have written about and talk about? No. It's like, again, you come back to what you said earlier about if people just read one book, they would have a different view of me. Well, so many people in the alternative media dismiss me. They don't read one book. They basically are responding to one-liners. Oh, he believes in the reptiles, just like a mainstream journalist would. They think they're different, but they're not.
Yeah, and they're also uncomfortable with looking at the energetic side of things, the consciousness side of things. You know, they play it safe in the physical realm, but as soon as you enter the, you talk about astral and things like that, people tend to switch off.
Yeah, what's interesting is I've written in the books about the difference between the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain. And there's a really great psychiatrist, Scottish psychiatrist called Ian McGilchrist, who's studied and written at length about this. And what you see is that what we call human society is controlled by the left side of the brain. It's numbers, it's what people think of facts, it's the intellect, it's the language, all these mechanisms that operate within the five sense world. Whereas the right brain doesn't see things in a sense of myopia. The left brain only sees the parts. The right brain can process information that sees how the parts connect. And when I look at the mainstream media, it's completely owned by the left brain. It's the way the mainstream media sees the world. You look at scientists, they're left brain, not quantum scientists, they're much more right brain, but the orthodox scientists are left brain. Doctors are left brain, overwhelmingly left brain. Politicians are left brain. The whole education system is indoctrinating people, kids and young people, in a way that puts them in the left side of the brain. Almost all the exams are left brain centric. But it's not just the mainstream media that's left brain. The great swathes of the so-called alternative media are also left brain. So they are welded in their perceptions of the world and reality to this five sense world. And as Christianne says, I'm looking beyond that, because that's where the answers lie, and that's where the quote solutions lie. That's where the whole thing's coming from. The five sense world is just an illusion to keep our attention focused on the illusion, so we don't see the true nature of the human plight. And so, because I'm going into these areas that the left brain goes, "Ooh, what's all that about?" You imagine talking about metaphysics to an orthodox scientist, they just think you're crazy, and you're not like them. They live in the real world, you don't. What they don't realize is they live in an illusory world. And the alternative media, in terms of that, is no different. Some people within it are, but the the bulk of them are not.
Yeah, and what you write in, I think it's the reveal as well, that you often find people that are either very much in the left brain or very much in the right brain, and they have all these amazing creative thoughts, but they don't get a lot off the ground. And the idea that we need to be more balanced between the two, that's what's that's kind of what the problem is, I think.
Well, that's a kind of interesting point, because when we're looking at the left-right puppet show, we're talking at the left-right brain show, aren't we? We're looking at two sides seeking dominance, when if we work together and had a unity, the world would be very, very different. And it's this unity of the left brain, which kind of helps you function in the illusion, and the right brain that can see beyond the illusion. Bringing those two together is phenomenally important. But of course, the manipulators who absolutely know how all this works, they want to keep that apart. It's interesting, when people, for various reasons, had their what's called the corpus callosum, the bridge between the left brain and the right brain, when they've had that cut, they literally go into a split personality. It's called split brain syndrome, where there was one woman I remember who, when this happened to her, she would hand over money with the left hand and take it back with the right, because the two parts of the brain didn't know that one had already handed it over. They would open the door with one hand and shut it with the other, because the bridge had gone. Therefore, the two sides of the brain weren't talking to each other at all. And in so many ways, the political vaudeville is a mirror of that disconnection between the two sides of the brain.
Yeah, and that imbalance also makes us as a collective very prone to collective hypnosis and mind control, I guess.
My goodness. This could be an entire show. I mean, I just look at how they took out, for example, cursive writing out of the curriculum in schools, and cursive writing helps you connect the brain hemispheres and so many other things. And you can see it in people. And I believe, like you say, part of what we see in the ignorance, like you've said so beautifully, in the quote unquote alternative media, is literally such a disconnect. And Christianne, I know, I follow you on social media, and I see a lot of similar reactions from you than I see from my wife. And I get a fraction of the attacks that David gets. But you've mentioned earlier that people perceive him as negative. And I've looked deeper into that. And what I see is actually someone who could be a mentor to these, younger generations. And he's saying, for crying out loud, wake up, open your eyes, open your heart, look at what is staring you right in the eye. How's this for you, just on a human level? We're all humans too. People forget that. People forget that David Icke is a human being with a heart and a soul, and and feelings, and how is it for you to watch all that?
So it was the question for me, right? Yes. Well,
yeah.
Well, in the beginning, when we started working together years ago, I used to watch what would happen, and I would get so riled up, and I would go into discussion on social media with people. And after a while, I noticed how absolutely exhausting this was. And then my next response was, okay, I'm going to withdraw from it all. I'm just not going to go on social media. I'm just going to pretend it's not there. But then I went to another phase. And that's the phase where one of your books was based on, I Am Me, I Am Free, where you actually kind of become desensitized to it, because it's nothing to do with him or with whoever receives the abuse. It's purely a projection from somebody else's reality bubble. And when that really hits, suddenly it does become way more water off a duck's back, I have to say. And now, when I see the abuse, I hardly ever respond anymore. And I'm genuinely feeling that I'm becoming kind of desensitized. I mean, I would prefer, of course, that it wouldn't happen. But in a way, they're rendering us a service, these trolls, because, they're actually making us stronger. And I guess that's what it is. They're making us stronger.
I went through historic levels of abuse and ridicule in the early 1990s in Britain. And it cleared me out of the prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think. And I chuckle to myself sometimes at the trolling and the abuse and what have you. And it's like, why are you wasting your time attacking me when it goes in one ear and out the other, even if I read it, which is rare. And you know, you do what you know to be right. You do what you believe to be right, and you do it no matter what the consequences and no matter what the abuse and ridicule that comes your way, because you believe it to be right. And to contemplate not doing what I believe to be right, but self-censoring myself so more people like me, that's not a thought pattern that would ever manifest in my head.
No, you're really not bothered about that.
I'm really not bothered, because you know, I look at it. I look at this realm, and you've only got to go into the quantum realm to confirm it, as an illusion, Maya, and thus, why am I going to be affected by abuse and ridicule coming from Maya? It's illusion. I am all that is, has been, and ever can be, having a brief human experience. So is everybody. And that's where I self-identify myself from.
Yeah.
And something else that you've just said, which I think is very relevant, is I would be very happy to use my experience of the decades to help people who are new to this and want to get the information out there, in pointing out that they've got only part of the picture and here's some of the rest. But they don't ask me. That's the point. They don't ask me. They don't consider. It's like the Ian Carroll guy on Rogan. His comment about me, oh, he says it's all the reptiles. Well, that's the end of it, is it? That's me. That's me described. And you know, I'm here, and I would be very happy to help people if they're genuine, not if they have ulterior motives and ulterior agendas. But the genuine ones, I'd be very happy to help, but I never get asked.
Yeah, and I, for one, am personally incredibly grateful for having been able to work with David for these years, because honestly, for me, he's been an incredible teacher, because a lot of the things he would say, it would be quite challenging for me, and I'd be like, no, surely not, surely not. But when you see that time and time again, you know, it's happening and it's true, you start actually accepting him as kind of a mentor in that sense. And it's also helped me a lot with feeling a lot less insecure with comments and what people are going to say about my work or whatever. It's given me a lot more confidence, because I'm no longer feeling I'm relying on only the good compliments that I get from people. I'm kind of more going to this neutral place, exactly like what you say. You do what you feel to be right, and you stay true to that no matter what.
You know, David, you mentioned that Ian Carroll interview on Rogan, which I couldn't stand to watch, but I saw at least a few snippets. What bothered me the most is that the guy literally said, you know, I'm fairly new to this. I really don't know that much. So, and he said it on Rogan. It was sort of went unchallenged. You know, nobody said, okay, so if you're fairly new to this, why present yourself as some kind of authority on anything if you've only just tapped your toe into the water? And the problem with that is that 35 years ago, there was some time. There is really no time left in what you've been saying. And what we're beginning, thankfully, to see many people is, it's not that it's not that this is not obvious now. It's that a few years from now, most people don't even or won't even be able to have this conversation, because they will have been messed with so much. Not that just the algorithm will erase people like you and us who are talking about it, but they won't be able to. How do, I'm genuinely asking, how do we convey that urgency better without taking hope away from the people?
Well, I'm doing my best to convey the urgency, but in doing so, you're called negative and a black pill, a black pilled. That's the new phrase. And so all you can do is keep on, and people who hear will hear, and people who won't. And I do focus my attention a lot more now on not just what's happening in this realm of human, but it's my contention that this simulated reality is multi-leveled, multi-dimensional, and that as we've talked about my book, The Reveal, it's created a Buddhist wheel of samsara to get people out of the human body into the astral and then back into another human body through reincarnation. And that this cycle just continues and continues and continues. And there's reasons for that, which I talk about in the books. And so my focus more and more is, how people, when they leave the body, our consciousness leaves the body, how it gets out of this multidimensional simulation completely. So it's back out into the infinity that lies beyond this, what is a tiny speck within the infinity of infinite awareness. Because, if you don't, and this is another reason why I'm trying to push these people out of their myopia in the alternative media, is because if you're Alex Jones and you buy the idea, and there's something I think as strange has happened to Alex. He's a different person, it seems to me, so many ways. But
I would agree.
If you buy the idea that the answer to the conspiracy, because you only see it in these terms, is supporting Trump and Musk, etc., then okay, even if it works out, it's not meant to work out, but let's say it does. When you come to the end of your biological computer and it ceases to function, and you leave the body, then if you're not aware of the bigger picture, you're going to go up the wheel of samsara and you're going to come back as something else. And you may come back next time, Alex, as someone who thinks that conspiracy theorists are crazy. This is how it works. And we have to break that cycle, to break not just the human control system of imposition, but the simulation system of constant reincarnation to keep us in the trap. And fundamental, and this is, much deeper in the rabbit hole, and kind of relates to some of the things we've been talking about. It relates to detaching yourself from the illusion. So you can experience the world, but it's an illusory world. You know how it works. You know that your brain is decoding like a Wi-Fi reality into what we experience as a physical world, which clearly isn't from quantum physics alone. But you don't get attached to it in the sense of you identify with it. You're an observer of it, knowing that it's an illusion. And that means you can interact and you can have a laugh and all that stuff. It's not a problem. You can even pursue what you'd like to do in this life. That's all right. But all the time, your I is not the body and the labels of it. It's the consciousness having the experience. And so when you leave the body and you leave this material reality, illusory material reality, then you don't have that that energetic attachment, that frequency attachment to this reality that basically operates like a ball and chain that holds your frequency within the bounds of the simulation. You're out of here. But while you're attached to the human reality and the perception of a human world, that's not going to happen. And that's why they don't want us to go through that true awakening. They want us to believe that this reality is real, and it's not. And in the last few minutes, I've gone light years beyond where the mainstream of the alternative media is.
Exactly right. Exactly.
No wonder they think I'm crazy.
Yeah, and if they're waiting for a solution in that physical world or that physical matrix where all these different storylines are playing out, then probably there won't be the kind of solution that people are necessarily hoping for. But it does indeed start, and I completely agree with you, with going a step further and going into where are we actually, and daring to ask that question. And of course, I made the series The Great Unknown that we did a previous interview about, and your last few books that you've written, we're going really deep into that.
What's so interesting, and Christine and I had this conversation last year, actually a wonderful experience with a dear friend who is spiritually very awake to the happenings in the world, very intelligent. And I asked her, it was late in the conversation, 11:30 at night. I said, do you believe in karma? She said, 100% yes. And I said, do you believe in free will? And she said, 100% yes. And I said, well, could you use your free will to jump off the karma wheel? And she looked at me, her eyes were wide open, and I could see how the penny dropped. And literally, she told us many times her life has changed afterwards, and she's gone deeply into your books, David. And just it was just one question that literally changed everything. Christiane, you told me in our previous conversation that this was your process over the last years too, is sort of seeing all of it, but then imagining, wait, what if this deception doesn't end in this realm? Why do you think it's so challenging to believe if this is a deception? A lot of people can believe this is a deception here. A lot of it is. Why is it so hard to believe that the next realm, is pure? Or why would people think it's pure and not part of a deception?
When you leave this realm, you leave with the consciousness you have at that moment. So it makes you very prone to fall into the next trap if you haven't expanded that consciousness. Also, what you said about karma is very interesting, because people think karma means cause and effect. So if I have murdered someone, it means that someone now has to murder me, so I understand what it's like, or to pay off my debt. I don't think it works like that. I think karma is a very different thing. I think it is, you've caused something, and the effect of it doesn't mean necessarily you have to go through an event. I think the effect can be that you gain consciousness about the action you've had. So just the gaining of consciousness, of understanding, oh, this is what happens when I've set this in motion, that is already clearing karma. To me, that's what it is.
What I've found, and what I've studied looking at near-death experiences, and which are very common themes, and a very interesting area of my research, which is those that can remember the pre-incarnation period and then their incarnation. That's phenomenally instructive. And again, there's common themes in it. And I'm relating this in a second to karma. And what you have them describe is how they're going through in fine detail what their next life will be, what personality they will have, what they will look like, what they will do, how they will have this experience at this point, and so on. because it's to work out your karma. But then you then follow it through to those enormous numbers of near-death experiences that describe what happens after death, and what they call the life review, when the elders look through your life and you see all the mistakes you make. Oh, that's karma. You better go back and sort that out. And what you have is, on one side, you have a program that's like a software program infused in the body, which leads to certain personality traits and certain experiences and certain reactions. Like one said, "Oh, I didn't want to be as angry as I could have been, so I wanted to have an experience that was a bit less angry," and all that stuff. And then, having been through this basically program of personality and experience, you then get judged on your karma when you get the other side. Well, hold on a minute, but that was programmed in. And now you're saying I've got to pay back my karma for something that was programmed in before. I mean, it's like, it's all crazy. And one of the things that I see is the similarities between life that we experience in the human world and life as it is recounted by the near-death experiences in the astral dimension beyond it. And that is subordination to authority. So you've got all these authority figures and these experts and these scientists and doctors, and the people look up to them. All right, well, I'm not very bright and I'm not very clever, so I better look up to you to tell me what to think and tell me what to do. And then they leave the body, and suddenly they are, and this is such a common theme, they are faced with religious hero figures, which I say are projections, loved ones that have passed, angels, guardians, elders, and they are the new authority figures. And so when you follow through these near-death accounts, they do what the authority figures tell them, because they're bewildered. Why would they be bewildered if they've reincarnated many, many times? Why would you be bewildered when you leave the body? You must have experienced that many times, but the mind is wiped, so they still are not aware of what's going on. It's like they're doing it for the first time. But then they're faced with these authority figures, and because they're in a bewildered state, and what's happening, they do what the authority figures tell them. Oh, well, you get on the wheel of samsara, go up the tunnel. There'll be somebody waiting there. And then you'll get on the wheel and you'll go back, and that'll be good. It'll be your karma. The whole thing is
it's a setup.
It's a setup, and it's subordination to authority.
Yeah.
Both in the human world and in the astral world beyond it.
And how can you leave with a clean slate? It's impossible. Everything here is set up for you to, if karma was real, you all the time you're creating karma. The whole 24/7 you are. So you'll never get out if it's based on those principles.
Yeah, and one of the things that is very clear from talking to those that remember their incarnation process is just how incredibly dense energetically this realm is. It's extraordinarily dense. I mean, they say it's almost indescribable how dense it is when you enter this reality. And it's that density, that treacle energetically that we're living amongst. I mean, of course, consciousness is going to lose itself. It's going to do things that consciousness in its pomp would not do. And then they tell you it's your karma and you've got to go back and do it again to pay off your karma. It's a complete kind of mind trick that goes on and on and on. And that's why I think it's so important that, you know, we get into these deeper areas, because I don't want people to go on this wheel of samsara, experiencing this density. And I mean, if you look around the world at the 8 billion people, the vast majority are trying to survive another day. I mean, it's not fun. So that's the biggest contribution I think we can make to people, is to have some tools to get out of here when they leave, and not just keep coming back.
You know, I'm actually one of those people who remembers my early toddler or baby stage. Actually, I remember thinking, oh my God, not this shit again. You know, this is, now I got to get used to this all over again. Heavy body, everything's very, and of course the frustration of the limitedness of it all. And I remember this throughout my entire, you know, baby years and toddler years. And it would seem, and you hinted at it, Christiane, it would seem that when you, David, when you started really talking out about this more and more, and you've been writing about this, of course, over the years, but this has become a focal point of your interviews, of your talks, this particular piece of the puzzle. And it would seem that hit a nerve, because I would go out on a limb here and say that probably you being banned from publicly speaking and being in the same room with people is owed to this piece of the puzzle that you are exposing. It seems to be a very important one, energy production and all. I know you're not slowing down, but are you still actively fighting this, trying to, you know, get the ban lifted? Because it makes a difference whether we are with people in a room or in a digital space. It makes a huge difference. What are sort of the next steps?
I'm not fighting it, because I don't fight anything. What I'm doing is not cooperating with it, and my lawyers are not cooperating with it, and therefore we are continuing to pursue justice, and in doing so, highlighting the injustice, which is a really good reason to keep going. What's happened now is this latest judge, who's, I think it's the biggest court, the highest court in the Netherlands.
Yeah,
they
Council of State. Appeal that we've just had.
It must be important. They've gone away to consider, and I think it will be quite a bit of time before they come to a conclusion. And after that, it's the European Court of Human Rights, which will have to make the judgment, because the Netherlands is in the EU, and therefore comes under the European Court of Human Rights, and it will have to end up there eventually.
I mean, from your personal standpoint, I'm sure you hope it doesn't, but probably from a highlighting standpoint, that would give it the most attention, because we're saying, we're talking about someone who's never been charged with anything, never convicted of anything, and whose movement is restricted so heavily that it's insane to consider. Now, Christiane, we will do our best to help push this movie out there to as many people as possible, but please let us know, where and when can people watch Persona Non Grata, and how can they find it? Where can they find it? And what can we do to help?
Right, so the film is going to come out officially on the 29th of March. That's a Saturday. And it will be on the platform that we do all our films on, iconic.com. You probably will show a link. And for the Dutchies, we're going to do an awesome premiere in the Netherlands on the 26th of March next week. I'm really looking forward to it, because there's going to be quite a few mavericks coming to the premiere that are going to do a Q&A on stage. So we've got some really amazing Dutch activists. Also an ex-presenter, his name is Robert Jensen. He was an ex-mainstream presenter, and he went through a similar journey as David, very popular national television, and he had an awakening as well. Started his own alternative media platform, really speaks out. So he'll be on stage as well. And the latest I've heard is that it's pretty much sold out. It's a big theater filled up with people. So I'm very much looking forward to it, because I think it's so important sometimes that we are physically together. And when you have all these people together with the same mindset, that's quite a powerful energy. And I think that will do. I think, word of mouth will come out of that.
Yes. Well, nothing is harder than keeping a conversation with David Icke and Christianne Van Wijk at around an hour, but I know you're very busy. So we could go on for hours. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you do. I think Iconic, by the way, is an exceptional platform. Probably underrated and underknown. So I just encourage everyone to go to iconic.com, check it out. It's just a plethora of beautiful knowledge and such a broad spectrum. David, Christianne, thank you both so much for everything you do, for your time today. It's
Jean,
always an honor and a pleasure.
As well for what you do. We love your work, and it's always really nice to chat to you.
Absolutely.
Thank you both, and Inspire Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you, we appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon. Today, I'd love to invite you to experience something incredible that completely changed our lives, and I trust it will do the exact same for you. Now, maybe you have visited a place or walked into a house and just felt an incredible energy, just peace, love, harmony, and you keep returning to those places because they feel so good. Such places exist in nature, and maybe you've heard of them, Machu Picchu or Mount Shasta or other places that are considered to be high consciousness fields. It is where the level of consciousness is literally higher than everywhere else, and people go there to heal, to have spiritual experiences, to meditate, to feel more peace and harmony. Now, our friends over at FLFE, Jeffrey Stegman and Clayton Stedman, have developed a spiritual quantum technology that creates such a high consciousness field around your home or on the go with their mobile service. It is a non-invasive, non-AI technology. There are no downloads or devices that you need. The technology works with quantum entanglement. The results are absolutely amazing. My wife Christine and I did their free trial, and we were just blown away by the energy, the better sleep, the better harmony, and especially the EMF mitigation. This absolutely mitigates those effects and creates this field of unconditional love right where you are. I could talk about this all day long, but here's what I think you should do. Click the button down below that says start my free trial and simply experience it for yourself. 15 days, no credit card needed, no strings attached. Trust me, you will love it.